All right, gang. Tonight, I thought that we would go ahead and deal with an issue that has come up here often. Having single mothers raising sons in this group, I thought it'd be interesting to begin looking at a presentation that was dealing with that very topic. So let's just jump into the it's a TED talk, and we'll jump into it, and we will then revert back and have discussion time afterwards. So here we go. Let me know if you all can see it.
In any case, Greta Gardner, JD, is a family violence director for the Travis County Counseling and Education Services in Austin, Texas, and serves as the chair of the Austin-Travis County Family Violence Task Force. Ms. Gardner's career as a legal advisor for survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault was inspired by her early work in the domestic violence unit of the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office. She has worked for nearly 2 decades to help shape guidelines, policies, and procedures that communities can use to end violence against women. She received her BA in psychology from Vassar College and her JD from the University of Maryland School of Law. She is licensed to practice law in Maryland and Texas and is certified in mediation. Ms. Gardner is also an adjunct professor at the University of Texas School of Law, core faculty for establishing expertise as an expert witness with the Institute on Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault, a steering committee member of the Institute on Domestic Violence in the African American Community, and she belongs to a multitude of local, state, and national committees that address violence against women and their children. Presenting for us under the theme of Dreaming of Fearless Futures, Raising Black Boys in America, ladies and gentlemen, Greta Gardner.
Thank you. Being a mom is hard. Being a mom of 2 boys is exhausting. Being a mom of 2 black boys is an awesome responsibility. I tell my boys all the time, Mommy's here to protect you. But my intellectual self knows I can't protect them from everything because, well, they will fall off bikes, they will get scraped knees, they will have bruised feelings. And try as I might, I cannot protect them from illnesses. I know this far too well. My second son, my youngest, when he was 7 days old, turned blue in my arms and went into respiratory arrest. I tried to give him CPR, but he was 5 pounds, 6 ounces, and I froze. My husband, thank goodness, was able to give him CPR, kept him breathing until the paramedics arrived. When we went to the hospital, we found out days later he had viral meningitis. He had contracted it because he caught a cold at the hospital where he was born, but because he was premature, his lungs weren't able to help him fight it off. The doctor said it was a fluke. There was nothing we could do to prevent it. I knew at that precise moment I would be a fiercely overprotective helicopter mom. I would wrap him in bubble wrap if I could. My fate was sealed, and so was theirs. Pun intended. And then I realized that as I was being this protective mom, that I would try to prevent them from experiencing any pain, that I had forgotten perhaps the most important thing. And this came to me one night as we were sitting at dinner, and my husband was called to be a part of a search and rescue team because a little boy had been lost in our hiking trails in our community, and it was getting dark, and the coyotes would be an imminent threat. My husband immediately got up from the dinner table, ran out, and joined the search party. He came back in 30 seconds. He had forgotten his wallet. And he and I exchanged this painful glance that we knew that if he didn't have his proper ID, he would be assumed to be a pedophile or a kidnapper rather than a trusted and loved member of our community. And it hit me right there that we had done everything. We had given them the best of everything. We had given them a great home, great schools, organic food, organic clothes. We had given them Maslow's hierarchy of psychological needs, the first tier on steroids. But what we had failed to do as parents is that we had failed to come up with a plan about how would we talk to them about racism. How would we talk to them about how racism could endanger our family? How they would be judged sometimes by the color of their skin and not their character. Because, see, we had gone to the best schools, we had gotten the best degrees, we were on the best career paths, we had the right zip code. But we had failed to give them the complexion for the protection. There is a quote in the movie Enough that I just love, and it says, "You have the divine animal right to protect your life and the life of your offspring." But how do you exercise that inalienable right when racism has taught us that you can't always do that? How do we teach young black boys in age-appropriate ways to climb the rungs of Maslow's hierarchy, to reach for safety and security, social needs, self-esteem, and self-actualization? How do we do this when they're already disadvantaged at birth? I was at a conference once when I was pregnant with my first son, and I sat next to this other pregnant woman, and she said, "Oh, what are you having?" And I was so excited. I said, "I'm having a boy." And she said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I said, "Why would you say that?" And she says, "Well, it's easier to teach a girl how to protect herself than to teach a boy how to walk through this world with his male privilege in check." Well, and I said, "Well, that's terrible." And I've heard other black moms say, "Oh, I'm so glad that I have a girl, because beyond the maleness, they don't want to raise black boys and have to prepare them and have to protect them and chance losing their sons." And I said, "Oh my goodness, as mothers, as women, are we discriminating against boys because it's just easier?" This sentiment is exemplified in a 2010 study where it said that black children are 7 times less likely to be adopted than white children. Girls are preferred over boys. And in another study, it says that light-skinned girls are adopted first, then brown-skinned girls, then light-skinned boys, then dark-skinned boys, if they're adopted at all. Because adoptive parents are afraid of the possible dysfunctional social behavior that black boys can exhibit. And so I'm sitting there scratching my head of like, was this the message? Is this the message that boys are risky and black boys are dangerous? And I was at a crossroad. Do I continue to walk in fear because I know I can't protect them all the time? Do I exemplify that for my children so that they diminish their power? Are they small as they walk through this world? Or do I challenge that message? And I said to myself, I will challenge that message. I will educate. I will advocate. I will celebrate. Because you see, I don't have the luxury of raising my boys in the world as I wish it to be. I have the duty to raise my boys in the world that it is. And the world has shown us it's a dangerous place for our black sons. Sean Bell, Oscar Grant, Trayvon Martin, Eric Gardner, Michael Brown. See, it's my hope one day I can tell my grandsons that this is an Orwellian black experience that will never repeat because we have evolved and we are a much more enlightened society. But we must speak their names, we must tell our history, we must tell their stories because we can't know where we're going if we don't know where we've been. And so as I sit and I think about how we will go forward, I will continue to educate. I will continue to advocate, and I will celebrate because my duty today is not just to educate my boys. When you get stopped by the police, keep your hands on the wheel, don't wear baggy pants, don't put your hoodies up top, don't stand too close to the woman in the elevator because you might scare her. My duty is to educate everyone I come in contact. Loretta Ross, a social justice activist, said, "You cannot do oppression work without working with oppressors." So every opportunity I have for a teaching moment, I will use on the playgrounds, at birthday parties, at schools, because it is my duty to say that black boys are not public enemy number one. Oh, they're so articulate. Well, thank you. What were you expecting? Oh, they have good hair. Well, thank you. But what do you mean by good hair? Oh, they're so good at sports. Are you preparing them for the pro leagues? Why, yes, and medical school and law school and anything else that their hearts desires. Because you see, Black boys are individual. They are unique. They are not monolithic. They have gifts and talents to give to this world that you will never know if you don't allow yourself to experience them. I will educate. I will advocate. I will be their voice when they have no voice. I will show the world that they have all these things to bear. I will push the boundaries of social change for my boys. And I will celebrate. I will celebrate them at home so they know they are loved. I will celebrate them in public so that others know that they are loved, and that Black love is as much a family value as anyone else, and is not an anomaly, and it is not fiction. And I will continue to show my boys that I will not walk this world in fear. I will channel my fear. I will educate. I will advocate. I will celebrate my boys so that they know we are all working together, so that they know we are all trying to create this elevated society where my boys know that there is a promise of a fearless future for all boys.
Okay, reaction to what you saw. Any reaction whatsoever?
Well, I'll start. When many years ago, when I decided, I wanted to be a mom, I wanted to, have that picket fence and 2.5, etc. I decided I wanted boys. And having observed the world and how Black men are treated and Black boys are treated, I have to say, at this stage in my life, I'm glad I did not have children.
Hmm.
That's not cool, but that's the way it is.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else want to jump in?
I know when I was coming up, and the phrase was Black boys were an endangered species,
Hmm.
and dealing with that reality in my mind was kind of strange because I know I'm a Black boy, but at the same time I'm hearing that I'm an endangered species. Um, and then going back and remembering seeing the move people get blown up on TV. Um, and it was just like, wow, they really don't care about us. Um, but it did not uh, have me when I finally was grown. It didn't make me not want to have a son. That was something that I look forward to. So I really can't relate from the perspective that she was really talking about, um, because I knew that I'm going to protect my sons. Something happening to my boys was never even on that was never a possibility on the agenda. So it was like more that I got out that they were moving in fear when that was a level I refused to live on.
Hmm.
So that's what I
You
got.
know, yeah, I remember all of those Black male think tanks, those Black male outreach programs that labeled us as endangered males. And, I participated in some of them, but never did I feel as if I was an endangered male. Um, that wasn't my walk. I'm from a lower middle class, working class community, um, where I'm sure that there were some crimes that went on or what have you, but nothing as pervasive as you would see in a major city. And in regards to my son, I love my son beyond measure, and I can't. I guess I'm in many ways like you, brother Maurice. There isn't a. It's not in the realm of possibility for me to operate as if I'm fearful. I'm always addressing issues and matters with him proactively. That this is who you are, this is what you should be doing, not from a defensive standpoint that says, well, if you do this, they're going to kill you. Watch out for this because you're endangered. Be afraid to do this or what have you. I don't have that in me, and I didn't want that in him either. And so, to hear people regretting having a black male son is absolutely amazing. But it's also, on the other hand, on the other side of the coin, it's understandable to me that if you really understand the obstacles that they're going to face as they go through all of the entanglements that can happen, that makes sense to me. That you may love them enough, even though they're not here, to not want them to have to go through what we go through. And make no mistake about it, it is a rough road to travel. Um, almost always, almost always. And I yield.
I, I guess when I'm listening to her, I'm trying to figure out what's novel about what she said.
Mhm.
We have been loving on our babies privately and publicly while enslavement, since enslavement. Um, I feel like that line of thinking can be dangerous because it can put us in a position thinking that we control um, the narrative of Black boys in America.
Mhm.
And the truth of the matter is, you can't change a pathological heart that's inherently evil and see you as subhuman, does not see you as. There are studies that have asked white people to look at boys under the age of, I think it was like 15, and to
Mhm.
guess their ages. And they always overestimate their ages. And they always um, somehow characterize the boys as being threatening, you know? So you cannot change the heart of someone who has no interest and respect for you as a human. Second, I can educate all day, but when you want to change and be the agent of change, as she said, it's like you have to change the power structure. So I don't know. I guess I've become pessimistic, you know, in my way of thinking because that does nothing to me. I mean, you might convert a few here and there, but you need people who are in the positions of power to change, and that's the problem. That's where the problem lies. You need judges, you need politicians, you need CEOs, you need all these people to change.
Mhm.
So I don't know what the answer is because I think that's a lofty idea. And again, it's not necessarily new. What she's saying is not new. You know, we have always been overprotective and supportive of our boys as a whole. Um, I don't see I don't see what's the there's a personal advantage of that obviously for the boys, but as a societal advantage, I don't see it. Because I mean, we have evidence. We know of boys who have been murdered and killed and harassed, and they were loved on at home. They were. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I don't know. Again, I think I'm become pessimistic.
I don't think that you're pessimistic. I believe that you're a realist. And it's one of the reasons why I couch, everything I say and I with the idea that I really don't care what white people are doing, because that's energy and time that I'm taking away from building the fortress of Black America, because they're
Mhm.
going to do what they're going to do. And we better be prepared to address what it is that they're doing. Um, at this late point in the game, um, they've been socialized. And the unfortunate thing that we have to be honest about it. And it's one of the things that Du Bois talked about. It's one of my favorite lines in The Souls of Black Folk, when Du Bois quite simply says, "It is a peculiar sensation to view oneself through the eyes of another." Um, the same socialization process that leads to white bigotry is the same one that produces black self-hatred. It's the reason why I will always cite Dave Chappelle's Clayton Bigsby character as one of the most insightful American characters, darn near Captain America status. When you're talking about the comedic world, what happens when you take a black person who doesn't really understand that they're black, and you inundate them, you bathe them um, in anti-black rhetoric and perspectives. We don't want to look at it this way, but the truth of the matter is that that's the standard socialization for so many black folk who are seeking to get ahead. Their path to financial resources and what have you is to begin to mimic, and really activate many of the less savory characterizations of black folk. I have colleagues who cringe when they see black men in their classes, because they know that there's some issues that are going to come from that, as if there aren't issues that come from every other student. But
Right.
it's that socialization. But they are in many ways shocked that we love on ours, like they and I try and tell people that, not that they don't love theirs, but think about how overprotective and attentive you would be to a populace that is openly bantered as being endangered species, that you can turn on. It isn't a rumor that Trayvon got killed. It isn't a rumor. We saw Tamir Rice get shot down. Okay, so yeah, we have to protect ours from not only them but also from us, unfortunately. And
That's true. That's true. But here's the issue. Like, with protecting from ourselves, like, that anti-black socialization comes from, and we know it comes from survival. You know, if you want your children to be successful, if you want some food on the table, we've adopted. I mean, that's one of the main issues, I guess, of critiques of integration, is that adopting that anti-blackness. If you want to feed your family, that's what you do. I mean, and that's not even unique to us. I mean, you've been to West Africa, where to to gain social mobility, you had to adopt a white Christian name and denounce your indigenous faith, and you had to do certain things and straighten your hair and all these things to be accepted, so you can feed your family, And so, yes, that's true that we have to protect ourselves from ourselves, but how do you do that when, you don't own nothing in this society? You don't control anything in this society, and some of us, we know how to code switch, we know what's what, but like mostly don't, you know, particularly children, the youth, we train kids, make sure you do X, Y, and Z so you can get that good job, you know. and what we're instilling in, like as you said, anti-blackness. But what do you do when you are a stranger in your own? You know?
There's a, I often reflect upon, the ancestors during the slave experience. And I refuse to believe that they could survive without spaces for themselves. The great jazz artist Najee has this great song that I love, Room to Breathe. I believe that they carved out room to breathe. It's how their worship was able to be continued. Religious practices, religious beliefs, and what have you. I believe that we as a community have these spaces, these rooms to breathe, barbershops, stoops, these informal passing moments between, especially Black men. Um, and it might be expressed, solidarity might be expressed in just a nod, an acknowledgement, or what have you. I know that happens often for me in the gym when I see there's a cadre of brothers who are there, 5 or 6 of us, and we rarely speak a word to each other because we're lifting, but there is an acknowledgement, a nod of the head, and a notification that I recognize your humanity. Um, but it's a tough one, and I think that one of the things that bothered me about the TED Talk was the compulsion to explain to white folk who we are,
Yes.
what we're doing, as if, as Malcolm would put it, as if they're who we're trying to be equal to, and you're nowhere to be equal with him, But I see that a lot, that we're taking these positions where we have to be on stage explaining things to them. They can fumble and bumble through society and through life, and any mistakes, any faux pas that they make are going to be in many ways excused away. We have this thing with the coach, the head basketball coach of Creighton University right now, who literally told his players, he said, I need you to stay on the plantation. I don't need you leaving the plantation. And he's trying to make an analogy about being committed to the basketball program. And at the same time, we have University of Texas, saying that they're big boosters, have said quite simply that if those Black boys don't stay on that field, while the eyes of Texas, and sing the eyes of Texas, which is a racist song, that they're going to stop giving money. So you're seeing almost you're seeing on a consistent basis this entire forcing Black boys, Black men to do something against their will. And in many ways, as you're putting it, what is their recourse to even resist it? And I yield.
Yeah, I would say it's a hard road to hoe, and I can understand somebody's. I don't like it, but I can understand the explaining things. Sometimes you got to get by, and that may mean in terms of like somebody negotiating their own mental health, and maybe to keep from killing somebody, you got to tell these white people, hey, this is the way it is. I've been that way a few times. I'm around a lot of white folks right now. And sometimes it just gets really, really frustrating. You hear some stuff and you hear a lot of ignorant things, nothing like avowedly racist, but just stupid stuff, that they're not thinking about anything bigger than them. And sometimes I get upset, and that makes things a little bit worse. But it can alienate folks, and also even some Black people too, because they don't want to rock the boat in some ways. or they may not feel that, their space with white people, I guess is should be, they don't feel comfortable bringing up race at all in some respects, or if they do, they only have a certain few white folks they do that with, and it's just, I don't. The more I see it now, it's like, well, even my job, I do it at my own risk, to start doing such things, because I'm one uncomfortable white person away from probably losing my benefits, and losing employment, or not getting a promotion, and it's kind of like, well, that's already happened to some degree, but it's like, well, how worse do you want it to be? Like right now, people are trying to do things because of the George Floyd moment. It's, as stupid as it sounds, like, man, why now? And you want to ask that, but it's at the same time, it's something, and you hope that something else clicks. But you know it's only gonna go so far, especially if it's a institution of profit. So yeah, to me, it's just gonna always be that push and pull that probably won't change much. But in order for my own survival, it's gonna be like, well, here's how it is. And I can't imagine what I would tell a child in that regard. I guess it's just gonna be a long, hard, constant truth and helping them code switch if they're going to be in the white world.
Exactly. That's the conundrum. You're constantly, challenged with, do you speak the truth, or do you keep your job? Like you said, keep your benefits. With children, do I speak the truth? Like I have some intelligent Black boys in my family, But the fear is, as you all know, they'll be perceived as being confrontational and hostile because they're intelligent, because they can analyze and push back on on false information. My question is, what do we do? Because the heart of the video, whether I agree with her or not, in terms of always have to explain, the heart of the matter is, how do we protect ourselves? And, I constantly think about leaving this country, constantly. And I love, the vision that Brother Muhammad has, for that reason. But, what do you do? What do you do? And I know I'm thinking everybody has the answer, but, from childhood to death, it's about survival and protection. And we do not have that.
Yeah, I don't know if Brother Muhammad is in front of his computer. Were you here when he was talking about what they woke up to?
Woke up to, no.
Okay, if he comes back on, we'll have him.
She didn't hear that, man.
She didn't hear it.
No.
Yeah, I'll let him tell what they woke up to. So talking about the idea of protecting yourself and what have you. The truth of the matter is, and I was speaking about this with a student earlier today, about this idea of and this is one of my I won't call it a pet peeve. This is a peeve, major peeve for me, and it is when I gotta address something that everybody and Black folk in the room know it needs to be addressed. Okay. And they all sit back and say nothing. They allow me to address it. Okay. And then behind closed doors, they'll come into my office and tell me, yeah, brother, you was right. I'm glad you said something. That disgusts me. Because in many ways, it's an admission. And I, and of course, I'm working at a Black college. Of course, that moment re-solidifies the truth, which is when you get in quote unquote trouble, what they call trouble, there's nothing Black folk can do to pull you back or to help you. And even some of those who are in positions of power may not have the desire to do that. Okay, so it's a heck of a position, and when you reduce it even further from the adult professional life, you can't tell me that's not what's occurring with Black boys in the K through 12 system. of them being put in special education classes, them being suspended more, them being singled out to be sort of picked on and hazed and harassed at every single turn. Um,
Mm-hmm.
who in these schools have, and I know that Damon talks to me about one of his students that he had to go to bat for, but I would imagine that those moments are few and far between. That usually you're just out there, as a child, being picked on, and of course, before long, you're going to develop some angst in regards to the educational process. And that's not a sign of disinterest. It's a
Right.
sign of, I think, naturally wanting to protect your mental health. And
What's the last thing you said? Naturally what?
I think that it's a natural reaction
Mm-hmm.
to
Right.
wanting to protect one's mental health. No one wants to
It's a
go
coping
around.
mechanism.
Yeah, nobody wants to go around the thing that gives them anxiety, the thing that causes them, angst. You begin to shy away from that. You learn how to navigate around that. And unfortunately, for young Black boys, it appears that many of those things that they need to navigate around are essential, theoretically, to their success, their larger success in life. And when you add it all up, and I can feel the spirit of my sister Gwen B coming over me. The idea of separation definitely doesn't seem that bad. Separate and build your own, because obviously you're gonna be the whipping boy for them
Yep.
as long as you stay around them. Brother Otis.
Oh yeah, I was agreeing with you saying, yeah, separation. I felt that a lot, and like I noticed that more and more. I see a lot of younger kids, particularly college age kids, around here, um, with this, I'm not my grandmother kind of deal, t-shirts on, you'll catch these hands, it's like they're losing patience with that. But I often wonder, like, man, well, I have a young cat in my job that I was like talking to quite a bit. He's against code switching. I'm like, well, I tell him, man, well, you got to have an understanding about it, because I don't blame anybody for doing it, because this is a white job. I mean, and it's like, and sometimes you gotta, unless you, to the point, you're doing harm to other Black people, which some people do, some Black people do. I don't like that, but of course I understand folks, they do that. You got to do that. He says he won't do it, and to this day he doesn't unbraid his hair. He comes in, but now I found out he's not working there anymore where he was working. And he didn't. They were nitpicking some things at him, and eventually they just let him go. And I said, no, and that's exactly what I told him. What happened? They're gonna find something to get rid of you. Don't give them a reason, And sometimes, it could be that uncomfortableness is not fair. But I say you got to do what you got to do to keep your checks coming in. If you got a certain way you want to live, if you got people dependent on you, because right now it's hard for brothers to find jobs, and now he's driving with Amazon. But it's just I feel bad about it, because it happens to people, but at the same time, I think at the same time I kind of think that, well, looking on my career, I think we need more white people to actually get out there ahead of the game, because in my success, the reality what happened to me is I didn't go anywhere until a white guy got interested and helped me get along. and when he died on the job, I can literally show my career kind of plateaued. And it's like, I was like, man, I've been telling folks that, from time to time, but I'm thinking about just letting my overall bosses know, like, hey, this is a problem. Look at your company, or look at your school system and whatnot. These kids don't get by unless white people help them. And it's going to take more of that. But in a sense, you got to deal with white people to get better allies. I don't know how to push that along, because some people today say, well, we shouldn't deal with them, we shouldn't teach them, we shouldn't want to help them at all. But at the same time, if you want some kind of change, they're going to have to be involved in some way. And it's just I don't know how to do that without engaging that I guess that anxiety that these people ain't picking it up shit fast enough. And it's going to be, and it change may not happen. So
You're right.
Yeah, I mean, one is forced to eventually. I believe that maybe in our 30s, 20s, 30s, we have this optimism that, if we just teach them this way, if we just say this way, or what have you, if we're not threatening. But I believe by the time you hit 40 and you really have had enough exposure to what could best be analogized as a battlefield, you get an understanding that there are certain moves that you're not going to be able to make, that it is about allies and who will go to bat for you and what have you. And, as a person who's a labor historian and, you know, Panther historian, having dealt with and understand the Black Panther Party's penchant for interracial alliances, something that, thank God, they showed in Judas and the Black Messiah. I don't really see that anymore. Not from those who are power brokers. Um, I see a doubling, if not tripling down, on white racial identity from not all, but a significant portion of white America. That they realize that their privilege is being threatened, and they're rallying the troops in every way. I mean, how else can you explain the labor movement now being 40% supportive of the Republican Party? It's race. It's got to be race. There's no other logical explanation for it. And I yield.
Doc, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay, perfect. The problem that we're having is that for so long, we've been in this underclass position, and it leads to a train of thought that says, I can't get nothing done unless white folks approve it, right? And that is false. The reality of that is really false, because everything that they have gotten, they didn't get it on their own. We were integral in the mix of them getting it, whether it was we made it and they stole it, or we had the idea and they mass produced it after they stole it, right? So what we have to understand is we have to just go for ourselves and make it happen, period, point blank. I was thinking the other day, and I was thinking about my children. And I got my two boys. They're both, one is in college, working a part-time job, and the other is out here in the world trying to make it. And I got three girls, one in college, one in high school, and one in middle school. And I've determined that my girls will never work for this cracker, period, point blank. I don't want my girls to know oppression. I don't want that to happen, right? And that's one of the main reasons behind why we got our behinds up from Illinois and moved to Mississippi to get this thing done. Because I believe that we've been taught properly. The only problem is carrying it out, right? We haven't fully carried these visions and these teachings out to the level that we should. So by us getting up, moving to Mississippi into an environment that, if we're committed to the goal and we're able to motivate and move our people in a productive manner, we will produce everything that J. Edgar Hoover feared. We will actually produce that, right? It's not about we gonna go out and kill a cracker, look for the cracker and hunt them down. No, it's about we're going to build in a way that makes us able to live and do the things that we need to do based on us. And yes, we know that they're not going to like it and they're going to try to do what they always do, but this time they're going to meet death. They're not going to meet a little body of group of people trying to fend off. No, you're going to meet exactly what it is that you came to give us. And so in order for us to fulfill our desires as just regular people, we got to understand that the fight is real and we got to just make it happen. We got to make it happen. We have the ability to produce just like they did in Tulsa and had that section of the city and called it Black Wall Street because of what they were able to do. And they were able to do it because they had a determined idea. They had a determined idea and they were willing to see it through. And so we got to have that same strength and deal with our enemy from a position of strength and not from a position of weakness, because we've always gotten concession after a concession. I mean, if we think about it, you know, when Watts went up into the riots, what did they give them to chill them out? They gave them a parade. A parade. You're going to accept a parade over justice? This is what you're going to accept. So these are the things that has to be corrected, and they're only going to be corrected when the people are fed up. When they're fed up of accepting nothing and being pleased with accepting nothing. When the people are fed up and looking at what they're going to lead to their children. We as fathers, we do all the things that we need to do to make to our children to reach adulthood. But we got to go beyond just reaching for adulthood. We got to go into the realm of you don't have to work for this cracker no more. You don't have to go through what we got to go through. Right? Like one day at work, it took me 30 minutes to respond to an email because the way this cracker was talking to me on the email, it was like I was so angry, and my thoughts was, you wouldn't dare say this to my face. You wouldn't dare say this to my face, but you're comfortable talking to me like this in the email. So, 30 minutes, because I would write something and then I go back and read it, and then I gotta think, right? Once I push send, and this black man, last name Muhammad, is sending this white woman this message, how is it going to be received, right? So then I gotta water it down, and I gotta water it down. But they don't have to water nothing. They can say it how they say it, and we're supposed to accept it. See, for me, that's unacceptable for my children to have to deal with. That's unacceptable. So it is that fire that says, I don't want them to have to deal with what I got to deal with. That's unacceptable. And I believe that when we make that commitment and decide to do what we got to do, we'll bloom overnight. We'll bloom overnight because everything is already within us. Without us, America would never have been a superpower without us. And so we need to use that energy, that fuel, that knowledge to do for self. And, what we're going to do down here in Mississippi, it's going to be revolutionary, and it's going to be tough, but we don't have another alternative. We don't have another alternative. I got my oldest daughter who's on a full ride at USC. Her thing is, well, Dad, when I graduate, I'm just going to leave the country. And I'm like, baby girl, look, there is no place where you going to go and you don't see the footstep or the hand of the cracker. So running out of the country ain't the answer. You do your studying, and when you get through, then you come to Mississippi where your daddy is, and whatever you learn, what you learned at USC, bring it here, and let's open up and let's do what needs to be done. That is our way to get out. That's our exodus. Running to another country, that ain't no way. Trying to get white folks to be your ally, that ain't no way. We got to do this on our own, and we'll make it done. And I rest my mic.
Brother Muhammad, could you explain to those who weren't here what you woke up to?
Oh, yes, sir. So when we got up, we got on our front lawn, our house that we bought, right? We bought a nice size house, 10 acres of land. And we woke up with banana peels all in our front yard, all in our front yard, on the trees, that's in front of one of the windows that's blocking. And as we were walking, walking our property, and we're noticing all these banana peels. And so my wife, she says, this doesn't make any sense. And so we thought the area that we moved in, that, there was more Black people live over here. But where we moved in, we're the only Black folks that live over here, right? So it's like she was a little nervous because she was like, I wasn't expecting this right off the bat. Maybe when you get out there and you start talking your talk and doing that, I was, preparing for it then, but not just because we just got here, And so I just had to tell her, this is what it is. We got to defeat it. We got to defeat it. They're not going to change because in their mind, in this community, we don't belong here. We don't belong here. And these crackers, they ride around in golf courses, on golf tracks, the golf cart. And so our neighbor across the street, Jimmy, he ride up in his golf cart and he asks us, so yeah, I understand Herb, who's the guy we bought the house from. He told us that y'all was retired and this, that, and the other thing. And so he's like, did y'all buy the lot next to your home too? And I was like, yep, we got that too. We got this whole corner. So we, locked it down. And, I could see in his face, it's like he was beginning to turn red. He was beginning to turn red because he wasn't happy with that. But this is what it is. And like I told her, they ain't seen nothing yet. They ain't seen nothing yet. But we're prepared. They want to act stupid, then they're going to get what they're looking for. But this is the time that we're in. And we got to be unafraid to go ahead and challenge. Because they do stuff like that to punk us, to make us afraid, to make us back down. One of the movers, as the movers was putting the stuff in the house, the brother, he told me, pull me to the side. He said, I just want you to know, you in Mississippi, and these white folks do shoot in Mississippi. So make sure that you squared away. I said, brother, I ain't worried about that. They can shoot all they want. They're going to get shot right back. I'm not here to play, humble and this, that. No, you come to me with that, you're going to get what you come for. And so the group of us, we understand that. We understand that. And so we got to pave the way. To whatever way it goes, we got to pave the way. And I rest my mic.
I got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I absolutely, I respect your vision and what you're doing. I just, my question is, honestly, for myself, I don't know what the answer is, but as you said, about fulfilling your desires, I guess my question is, can you truly fulfill your desires in a foreign land? And when you talk about dealing with the enemy, you're dealing with the enemy on his turf. And his turf, I mean, again, what he controls. And so I just don't see the answer, you know,
Mhm.
whether it's to go abroad or to remain, because yeah, you're in a position and you've positioned yourself to fight back, but God forbid, you know, they control the fire department, they control the police departments, they control the food, they control the water supply, they control the roads, the infrastructure, you know? So I guess, you know, we don't own these things. They own the Wi-Fi, they own the air. I mean, so I guess if they wanted to really subdue a community like they have done historically, we know this, as most recently, you know, Philadelphia. What what power do we have to truly fight back? And I guess I'm still lost on that. I love the idea. I love being able to erect a community that's for the community, for our interests and for our needs. But when it comes down to it, again, we don't control anything, you know? And I know you're trying to change that. But I guess my question is, you know, I don't know what my question is, but can you really be self-sufficient when they have unbridled power, you know, in this country, and unilateral control? And I
Right.
yield.
And that's a good question. And the way that I see it, right, is that by us taking over a city, you know, being mayor and getting in and changing the laws, then that means we control a whole municipality. We control the police because we put who's going to be the captain, or you know, the chief of police. We control who's going to be the fire department chief, and we control all of this. And see, once we control it, then it comes a new way of thinking, a new way of being. It's just like with Brother Baraka up in Newark, right? He ran for mayor. Well, his son is in there, and he's doing some good things. He's doing some good things, and he's showing the way. But he got to be strong all the way, and that's why we chose, you know, Mississippi and these little cities, so that we can perfect the practice here, and then roll it out to our big cities there, because they are only as powerful as we let them be. I mean, when we really stop and think about it, right? The money in our pockets, we have made an agreement that this money has value. We made an agreement that this money has value. And everybody's talking about, oh, the system gonna fall, it's gonna fall, the dollar's gonna fall. And when it falls, then what's gonna be the medium of exchange? People are saying it's gonna be gold. And so my thing is, okay, well, if gold is gonna be the next medium of exchange, and I got land and I'm growing my food, and you bring me a rock and say, I'm gonna give you this rock for your food, and I tell you no, then that means what? That means your goal has no value because I don't agree that that is valuable. We have to change the way that we really look at it. So by us controlling a whole city, and we're doing it our way, not their way, we're doing it our way. So yes, we do know our water supply. We got to protect our water supply. So that's one of the things on our agenda. We got to protect the way that our electricity comes in and goes off. We got to protect that. That's on our agenda. We got to shore up everything that we need. That's why, you know, it's a big thing for us to get those of you all who are, you know, college educated and trained, because y'all know more. Y'all know more than us. So you'll be able to say, well, no, y'all need to do this, or this need to be done, and that need to be done. So if we work it together, we'll take all of those issues and knock them right off the table. Because the same way that Chinatown has their peace and their security, that's the same way that we can have ours. That's the same way we can have ours if we work it in a collective manner, knowing that we need each other in order for it to be secure, in order for it to be good and able to carry it on to the future. I know for a certainty, I don't need no cracker to tell me anything. I need my people to advise me properly. And that means that I got to be willing to listen because I don't know everything. I only know what I know. So I depend on other people to be able to give me good guidance and to tell me, brother, you need to watch this or you need to look for this because I may not see everything. But if we work it together, we'll be able to do exactly what it is that the Chinatown do in their little section of the city. And we'll do it in a whole section of a city. And as we do it in one city, and as we perfect our process and roll it out to different cities. And the more cities that we begin to take, the more secure we begin to get because now we're working in unity with each city, vibing off of this city, vibing off of that city. So we need food. We're in a position to grow our own food. We're in a position to get our own water. We're in a position to redo how we want to do electricity, whether we want to do it solar, we want to do it with the pole system. We're in a position now to make the proper changes. We're already seeing where the enemy fails at. And so learning, okay, well, they didn't have their solar right, or they didn't have this, they didn't have that. So we know, okay, we got to be able to have this. So we got to learn from the mistakes of others. So that way that will increase our security. It's a work in progress. It's a work in progress, but we believe this is what God birthed us to do, especially for this time that we're in. And I rest my mic.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Kind of going back to Danielle's question about what do you do, or what do you do when it seems like someone else has the power. And I get that. I feel that completely. And I think when we talk about liberation and Black liberation, sometimes the idea is too big. It does feel insurmountable. How do you change someone that has a mental illness? Because I believe racism and all that is a mental illness in some ways. Just like we suffer from, our mental health suffers from it, theirs does too. Um, but how do you get them to change their heart? I personally believe that some people won't, they just won't. So then the idea of really effective change and liberation, it does feel insurmountable, and it's easy to let yourself slip into, well, it's never going to be complete freedom, so let's look at compromise. And I think that that's part of our struggle towards liberation that we don't readily acknowledge. We like to just be like, no, freedom or death. Can't nobody do, whatever. But we don't really acknowledge how sometimes the idea of global liberation is too big. So for me, listening to your questions, I grapple with those same questions. But when we talk about what do I do when someone else has the power, there's a part of me now, and this is with age and experience, that now I recognize it's about self. So I have sovereignty over Regina. I do. I absolutely do. I don't know what else is, regardless, I do know. So, regardless of what else is going on in the world, I maintain sovereignty over this. This is my universe. This is what matters. And I rule this. Absolutely no one else. And so, yes, I may be working it. The job, I might not like the job. So the way that sovereignty shows up is I have a choice to make. Either be at this job I don't like, or be somewhere, do something different. And that is risky or whatever, but that's where sovereignty comes into play. If I'm in a relationship, whether or not it's romantic or business or community or whatever, and it's not benefiting me, it's harming me, or it's not good for me, sovereignty kicks in. I do not have to participate in this. I just don't. And so that's just kind of where I'm in, the space I'm in when we talk about, when I think about the bigness of liberation. And so what I have to focus on, and I don't know if this is the right answer, this is just kind of where I'm at right now, is liberation of self, in hopes that when I liberate myself, I know for a fact it absolutely liberates my daughters. My oldest just filed for her LLC. I mean, like I could be done. Like I could drop the mic and be done real good, But the idea of the baby, the 5-year old, like really, we're taking steps now and laying the foundation now where she could do whatever she want. And so you see, like at least I know I see it in my work. White people that their whole career, and they live good off of it. Their whole career study, I collect horse hair from a certain type of horse. Just think of something ridiculous. And they're good at it and they get paid at it and they study, this particular horse, and they're throughout their childhood and their young adulthood, their family has fed into their passion for this particular equine and its behavior and the region it comes from. They fed into that. They've traveled to that region. They know the culture, etc. And now they're able to make a living off of a passion, an interest, that really, just make something up. And so I want that opportunity for my children. Like what's your passion? What do you care about? Let's pour into that and pour into that and pour into that and allow you to help, allow you to build your life the way that you want around that. And then again, that's another level and expression of liberation. Whatever they decide that they need and want for fulfillment for their self and their own sense of sovereignty. So I just want to kind of, I'm enjoying this conversation, but hearing those questions from you, I feel like I just have to jump in and say, we remain sovereign, no matter what else these folks is doing. We still hold the power ultimately over self. And I think it's interesting that our ancestors, in some ways, recognize that. And so certainly we have slave narratives that talk about the idea of I'm physically here and I may physically be in some sort of bondage, but I'm still sovereign over self. And I can leave this if I want to. I can remove myself from this if I want to. And I'll stop there.
I love that perspective. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I'm just posing questions, I'm just
Yeah.
posing. I love the I love that, and I agree with that, and I also agree with human agency, but I don't know if I just play devil's advocate. There to me there is a limitation in respects to, again, we don't even have to get fancy, but just basics, basic necessities, again, that we do not control. Let's take this platform right now. We don't own Zoom. If the company decides that these ideas are too radical, they can shut this shit down. Like Twitter, like Facebook, Instagram, we don't control anything. We don't own anything, And again, I don't have the answers, but it would seem to me that if we're going to remain in this country, that we need to develop, our black techs, our food supply, our water supply, all those things to be a self-sustaining community, because self-sovereignty only goes so far. Again, when I can kill you at without any repercussions, or if I can cut your expression, because I own the shit,
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. I guess I'm just thinking about Brother Muhammad's vision too. And as I was just thinking, like, going back to Black boys and nurturing Black boys. I mean, I think if we're going to do this, boys and girls, you know, there has to be a re-socialization that occurs across the community. We need the Black geeks, you know, like for example, everything that's going on, regardless of where you are on the issue with COVID and whatever health issues, pandemics, we don't have enough Black doctors in places to advocate for our needs. You know, we don't have the Black text that's creating our platforms of equal quality or better, you know, so that you can get on platforms to talk about what we want to talk about. We don't have these things, you know. Um, it's in the making. You know, there's organizations that, you know, Black Girls Code, and you know, it's in the making. But as far as sustainability, is lacking. You know, and so while I want to, you know, be an entrepreneur, perhaps, or you know, I'm depending on their internet. I'm depending on their Wi-Fi. I'm depending on their towers. And this is not, again, not unique to us. You know, the same shit occurs internationally. I have friends who are in the Caribbean, West Africa, whatever, where we want to talk about, you know, that are being stifled and dying because they can't even produce their own food. They can't, you know, because of contracts and stuff with the World Bank and IMF, you know. So I don't know the answer, but I
That's
totally
real.
agree with self-sovereignty because that's real. It starts there. You have to have a new vision. You have to have a new way of thinking about yourself and who you are. But again, how far can we go with that when nowhere, nowhere we have, you know, unilateral control? But I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
And you're an example of that. Like, and that's the thing that, you know, like Muhammad and you know, and other people, you know, y'all are living examples of what's possible. And that's so important to change the narrative and change socialization and change expectations. But, you know, how long those anomalies going to take place to be able to change a generation to be self-sustaining and self-independent, you know?
but I don't think that they're anomalies. And so then that's the other piece. I also think that, and Black people are just out here doing it, you know, and I think that we lose sight of that sometimes. Yes, things are terrible, you know, and I can't say that I have the best approach to this, but I'm just in the space that I'm in right now. It's just kind of like, yes, I know there are bad things in the world, but when I focus on the bad things, I can't get any forward motion on the good. So it's like, yeah, I know that another 300 girls just got kidnapped and they ain't said nothing about the first 300. Where they at? You know, like, so if I really just allow myself to be the empath that I am, I would be mad by now. You know, I would be truly talk about mental health. There's no way I could function throughout the day if I worry about all the big bad things in the world. And so it's not that I turn a blind eye to those things, but I also make sure that I don't let that overshadow potential and possibility, and not even just possibility, divine right. So when you talk about like taking a risk and having a vision and being an anomaly and all of that, is putting yourself in alignment with what you're supposed to do. And then everything is going to work for you. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but when you line up with who your true spiritual self is, you're just meant to be successful when you live out your true purpose. And maybe your true purpose, more than likely, your true purpose is not aligned with a capitalistic society that we're currently in. So that's why it seems like we can't get ahead. That's why it seems like we can't succeed. But when you exercise that self-sovereignty to say, you know what, I'm in this system, but I don't have to be a part of it. I don't have to live like I'm a slave to it. You know, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I think that's when all the things that you need to be successful begin to line up for you. And again, I just don't think we're anomalies. I think that there are Black people all over the world doing this, and let's not lose sight of that. It's 9 o'clock. I'm gonna stop.
All right, Brother Muhammad, it is 9 o'clock. If you are in front of your mic, please take us out.
Yes, sir. Another excellent discussion, beautiful discussion, and enjoy everybody's comment. And as we always say, you kill the nigga in you, I'm gonna kill the nigga in me, and our God will reign supreme. We are Black first, today, tomorrow, and forever. Love you, family. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom.
Love you as well, my brother.